What kind of man builds an empire on lies and expects the world to bow? That's the question burning in Jimmy Kimmel's gut as he stares across the stage at Jay-Z, the music mogul whose smile doesn't reach his eyes tonight. The air crackles. With unspoken accusations, the audience hushed, sensing a storm about to break. Jimmy's not here to play nice, not after what he's uncovered. For years, Jay-Z's been untouchable, his name a golden ticket in entertainment. But tonight, Jimmy's got a match to burn that myth down. It's not just about the rumors, the whispers of backroom deals and broken promises. It's personal. Jay-Z's latest move, a shady takeover of a small music label, crushed a friend of Jimmy's, a good man who lost everything. That's the spark. The kindling? Decades of resentment, of watching Jay-Z glide through scandals while others paid the price. Jimmy's hands grip the desk, his knuckles white, as he leans forward, voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You think you can walk in here, flash that grin, and we'll all pretend you're clean." The crowd gasps. A few nervous laughs ripple, but Jay-Z's face hardens, his jaw tight. He didn't expect this, not on live TV, not from a comedian known for jabs, not knives. The story starts here, in this moment, where two giants collide, one fighting for truth, the other for his throne. It's a showdown that could ruin them both, and neither's backing down. Jay-Z shifts in his seat, his tailored suit suddenly looking like armor that doesn't fit. "Careful, Jimmy," he says, voice smooth but laced with venom. "You don't know what you're stepping into." The threat hangs heavy, but Jimmy's done playing safe. He's got evidence, a paper trail of Jay-Z's dealings, passed to him by his friend Marcus, a small-time label owner whose dreams were gutted when Jay-Z's company swooped in. Marcus had trusted Jay-Z, believed the promises of partnership, only to find his artists poached, his contracts voided, his life's work reduced to a footnote. Jimmy's voice rises, cutting through the tension. "I know enough, Sean. I know about Marcus. I know about the deals you buried, the people you stepped on to keep your crown." The audience murmurs, shocked, as Jay-Z's eyes narrow. He leans forward, elbows on knees, like a predator sizing up prey. "You're out of your league, man. This ain't your world." But Jimmy's not intimidated. He's got the crowd, the cameras, and the truth. He pulls out a stack of papers, slamming them on the desk. "These are emails, Sean, your emails. Telling Marcus you'd save his label, then selling it out from under him." The crowd erupts, boos mixing with gasps, as Jay-Z's cool cracks, his hand twitching like he wants to snatch the papers and burn them. He doesn't. Instead, he laughs, a cold, hollow sound. "You think you can play judge and jury? You're a talk show host, not a cop." Jimmy's smile is grim. "Maybe not, but I've got a microphone and 10 million viewers. Let's see how they judge you." The stage feels smaller now, like the walls are closing in. Jay-Z's charm, his weapon of choice, is failing him. The audience isn't clapping for him anymore. They're waiting for blood. Jimmy pushes harder, his voice steady but fierce. "You told Marcus he'd be family, Sean. You shook his hand, looked him in the eye, then let your lawyers rip his life apart. Why? Because his label was small enough to crush without anyone noticing?" Jay-Z's face twists, his calm unraveling. "Business is business, Jimmy. You think I got here playing nice? You think your precious Hollywood's any different?" He's shouting now, his polished image slipping like a mask. The crowd jeers, feeding off the raw anger. Jimmy doesn't flinch. "This isn't about business. This is about betrayal. Marcus trusted you. I trusted you." The last words hit like a punch, personal and raw. Years ago, Jimmy had vouched for Jay-Z, helped him get a foot in the door for a charity event that boosted his image. Now, that memory feels like a slap. Jay-Z stands, towering over the desk, his voice a growl. "You don't get to lecture me. You don't know what it takes to stay on top." The audience is on edge, some shouting, others frozen, as security hovers near the stage. Jimmy rises too, meeting Jay-Z's glare. I know it doesn't take stabbing friends in the back. The crowd roars, and for a moment it's chaos, a collision of egos under the unforgiving glare of live television. The crowd's roar fades into a tense hum as Jay-Z looms over the desk, his shadow cutting across Jimmy's face. The air feels thick, like the moment before a fistfight. Jimmy doesn't back down, his eyes locked on Jay-Z's, daring him to make a move. The mogul's hands clench, veins bulging, but he sinks back into his chair, a predator choosing to stalk rather than strike. You want to air dirty laundry? Jay-Z says, his voice low, almost a hiss. Let's talk about you, Jimmy. How many favors you called in to keep your show afloat? How many backs you scratched to sit in that chair? The accusation lands like a slap, and the audience gasps, some jeering, others leaning forward, hungry for more. Jimmy's jaw tightens, but he's not rattled. He's been in this game too long to let a cheap shot derail him. Difference is, Sean, I didn't ruin lives to get here. Marcus had a family, a daughter in college. You left him with nothing. The name Marcus hangs in the air, a ghost summoned to haunt. Jay-Z's eyes flicker just for a second, betraying a crack in his armor. He recovers fast, leaning back with a smirk that doesn't fool anyone. Marcus was weak. He didn't have the stomach for the game. You think you do? The challenge is a gauntlet thrown, and Jimmy picks it up without hesitation. He steps around the desk, closing the distance between them, his voice steady but burning with fury. This isn't a game, Sean. It's people's lives. You promised Marcus a partnership, told him you'd protect his artists, his legacy. Then you gutted his label, poached his talent, and sold the scraps to the highest bidder. For what? A few more millions in your pocket? The crowd's on its feet now, shouting, some cursing Jay-Z, others just caught in the raw energy of the moment. Jimmy holds up a single sheet from the stack of papers, waving it like a flag. This email, dated last March, says you'd invest in Marcus's label. 2 weeks later, you signed his top artist to your own company. Coincidence? Jay-Z's smirk vanishes, replaced by a scowl that could curdle blood. You're fishing, Jimmy. That's nothing but words on paper. But the audience isn't buying it. Boos rain down, and a woman in the front row yells, "Tell the truth!" Jay-Z's head snaps toward her, his composure fraying. He points a finger, voice rising. You don't know me. None of you do. The outburst is a mistake, and Jimmy pounces. Oh, we're starting to, Sean. America's seeing you real clear right now. The tension spikes as Jay-Z's temper flares, his carefully crafted image crumbling under the weight of Jimmy's accusations. He stands again, this time stepping toward Jimmy, close enough that security shifts, ready to intervene. You think you're some hero? Jay-Z snarls, his voice dripping with contempt. You're a clown with a microphone, digging for dirt to boost your ratings. Jimmy doesn't flinch, even as Jay-Z towers over him. If I'm a clown, what does that make you? A king who steps on his own people to stay on top? The crowd erupts again, a wave of noise that shakes the stage. Jimmy's not just fighting for Marcus now. He's fighting for everyone who's ever been crushed by someone like Jay-Z, someone who thinks power excuses everything. He steps closer, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, audible only because of the mic clipped to his tie. I trusted you once, Sean. I vouched for you, brought you into my world. And you repay that by destroying my friend? The personal betrayal cuts deeper than any email, and for a moment Jay-Z hesitates, his eyes searching Jimmy's face. But the moment passes, and his mask is back, colder than ever. Trust is for suckers, he says, turning to the audience, trying to reclaim them. This man's selling you a story. Don't buy it. But the crowd's not his anymore. They're with Jimmy, and the shift is palpable, a tide turning against the mogul. Jimmy senses it, his heart pounding with the weight of what's at stake. He's not done yet, not by a long shot. Jay-Z's words, "Trust is for suckers," echo in the charged silence, a confession that lands like a grenade. The audience is a sea of raised fists and angry murmurs, their loyalty now firmly with Jimmy. He feels the shift, the weight of their support fueling his resolve. He steps back, not out of fear, but to give the crowd a clear view of the man unraveling before them. "Suckers, huh?" Jimmy says, his voice sharp enough to slice through the noise. "That's what you call people who believed in you? People like Marcus, who thought you were a man of your word?" He picks up another document, this one a contract, its edges worn from Marcus's desperate grip when he handed it to Jimmy. "This says you agreed to split profits with Marcus's label. Instead, you bankrupted him. Care to explain that to the folks at home?" The crowd's jeers swell, a tidal wave of outrage. Jay-Z's eyes dart to the paper, then back to Jimmy, calculating, cornered. He tries to laugh it off, but it's forced, a hollow bark. "You're twisting things, Jimmy. That contract was a handshake, nothing more." Marcus didn't read the fine print. The excuse is weak, and the audience knows it, their boos drowning out his words. Jimmy doesn't let up, his voice rising with controlled fury. "Fine print? You're blaming Marcus for your lies? He poured his life into that label, Sean. He trusted you to have his back, not to stab it." He tosses the contract onto the desk, letting it land with a thud that feels final. The audience is on its feet, some chanting Marcus's name, a rallying cry for the underdog. Jay-Z's face darkens, his hands balling into fists. He steps forward, again, voice low and menacing. "You keep his name out of your mouth. You don't know what it takes to survive in this world." But Jimmy's not intimidated. He meets Jay-Z's glare, his own anger a match for the mogul's. "I know what it takes to be a man, Sean. To keep your word. To not destroy people just because you can." The words hit hard, and for a split second Jay-Z's mask slips, revealing something raw, almost guilty. But he buries it fast, turning to the crowd with a sneer. "You all eating this up? This guy's playing you, making you think he's some saint." The audience roars back, rejecting him, and Jimmy seizes the moment. "They see you, Sean. They see a man who'd rather burn bridges than build them." The confrontation teeters on the edge of chaos, security now visible at the stage's edges, their radios crackling. Jay-Z's losing the room, and he knows it. He tries a new tack, leaning forward, his voice dripping with condescension. "You think you're exposing me? You're just jealous, Jimmy. Always have been. I built something real, something bigger than your little show." The personal jab stings, but Jimmy's ready. He leans in, voice steady, cutting. "I don't need an empire built on other people's bones. You call that real? I call it greed." The crowd erupts, a wall of sound that shakes the stage. Jimmy's not just fighting for Marcus now, he's fighting for everyone who's ever been chewed up by power and spit out. He pulls out one last piece of evidence, a recording, and holds up his phone. "This is you, Sean, on a call with your lawyer, laughing about how easy it was to take Marcus's label. Want me to play it?" The threat hangs heavy, and Jay-Z freezes, his eyes wide, betrayed by his own words. The audience holds its breath, waiting for the hammer to fall. Jimmy's finger hovers over the play button, his heart pounding with the weight of this moment. He's got Jay-Z on the ropes, and the world is watching. Jimmy's finger hovers over the phone, the screen glowing with the promise of Jay-Z's downfall. The audience is a coiled spring, their silence louder than any shout, waiting for the recording to shatter the mogul's facade. Jay-Z's eyes lock on the device, his breath shallow, a man staring down the barrel of his own mistakes. "Go ahead, play it," he says, but his voice cracks, betraying the bravado. Jimmy doesn't smile, doesn't gloat. He presses play, and the speakers crackle to life with Jay-Z's voice, smug and cold. "Marcus didn't see it coming. Took his label like candy from a kid." Laughter follows, his and his lawyers, a sound that turns the crowd's stomach. Gasps ripple through the room, then boos, a thunderous wave of disgust. Jay-Z's face is stone, but his hands tremble just enough for Jimmy to notice. "That's you, Sean," Jimmy says, his voice steady, cutting through the noise. "Laughing while you ruined a man's life. You proud of that?" The question isn't just for Jay-Z, it's for the millions watching, for the world to judge. The crowd's response is deafening, a chorus of anger that shakes the stage. Jay-Z tries to recover, his voice rising, desperate to reclaim control. "That's out of context. You don't get how this business works." But the excuse falls flat, drowned by the crowd's jeers. A man in the back yells, "You're a snake!" and others join in, their voices a rising tide. Jimmy steps closer, his eyes burning with purpose. "Context? You want context? How about the context of Marcus losing his home? His daughter dropping out of school because he couldn't pay tuition? That's the context of your greed." The words hit like blows, each one stripping away another layer of Jay-Z's armor. He's not the untouchable king anymore. He's a man exposed, cornered by his own voice. He lunges forward, voice raw with fury. "You don't know what I've been through to get here. You don't know the choices I had to make." Jimmy doesn't budge, his voice low but fierce. "Choices? You chose to betray a friend. You chose to laugh while he suffered. That's not survival, Sean. That's cruelty." The crowd roars, their support a wall at Jimmy's back, pushing him forward. Security edges closer, their presence a silent warning. But the real battle is between the two men, words their weapons. Jay-Z's desperation shows now, his polished image in tatters. He points at Jimmy, his fingers shaking. "You're loving this, aren't you? Tearing me down to make yourself look good." Jimmy shakes his head, his voice steady, almost sad. "This isn't about me, Sean. It's about Marcus. It's about every person you've stepped on, thinking they don't matter. But they do. And tonight, they're heard." He turns to the audience, raising his hands, not for applause, but for unity. "Right?" The crowd explodes, a surge of raw emotion, chanting Jimmy's name, Marcus's name, a demand for justice. Jay-Z's shoulders slump just for a moment, the weight of his actions crashing down. He tries one last time, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "I did what I had to do. You wouldn't understand." But Jimmy's done with excuses. He leans in, voice like steel. "I understand enough to know you're not the man you pretend to be. And now everyone else does too." The crowd's roar is a verdict, and Jay-Z's silence is his defeat. Jimmy stands tall, the phone still in his hand, a symbol of truth that's brought a giant to his knees. Jimmy stands firm, the phone still clutched in his hand, a beacon of truth in the storm of the confrontation. The crowd's chants of "Marcus! Marcus!" pulse through the air, a heartbeat of justice that drowns out Jay-Z's fading defenses. The mogul sits now, his posture slouched, the fight draining from him like water from a cracked vase. His eyes, once sharp with defiance, now stare at the floor, avoiding the sea of faces judging him. Jimmy doesn't relent, his voice steady, but charged with purpose. "You built an empire, Sean, but at what cost? Marcus isn't just a name. He's a father, a dreamer, a man who believed in you, and you crushed him without a second thought." The audience roars, their voices a wall of sound that seals Jay-Z's fate. A woman in the crowd shouts, "Shame on you!" and the words ripple, echoed by others, a chorus of accountability. Jimmy lets it sink in, giving the moment weight, letting Jay-Z feel the full force of the truth laid bare. He steps forward, closing the gap between them, his voice dropping to a quiet intensity that carries more power than any shout. "You could have been a leader, Sean. You could have lifted people up like you promised. Instead, you chose to tear them down. Why? Because it was easier." Jay-Z's head snaps up, his eyes flashing with a flicker of anger, but it's weak, a dying ember. "You don't get it," he mutters, almost to himself. "I had to protect what's mine." Jimmy shakes his head, his voice firm, final. "What's yours? You don't own loyalty. You don't own trust. You lost those when you betrayed Marcus, when you betrayed me." The personal sting lands, and Jay-Z flinches, the weight of his choices pressing down. The crowd senses the shift. Their cheers quieter now, a solemn acknowledgement of a man exposed. Jimmy turns to them, his face raw with emotion. "This isn't just about Marcus. It's about everyone who's been used, stepped on, forgotten. Tonight, we say enough." The audience erupts, not in anger now, but in triumph, a shared victory for the underdog. Jay-Z rises, his movements slow, like a man carrying a burden too heavy to bear. He looks at Jimmy, then at the crowd, his silence louder than any defense he could muster. "You win, Jimmy," he says at last, his voice barely above a whisper, drained of fight. He turns and walks off the stage, his footsteps echoing in the hush that follows. The crowd doesn't boo now. They don't need to. Justice has been served, not with fists, but with truth. Jimmy stands alone, the phone still in his hand, the papers scattered on the desk like evidence in a trial. He looks out at the audience, his voice steady, warm. "Marcus is watching tonight. And to him, I say, we see you, we hear you, you're not alone." The crowd rises, their applause a wave of solidarity, not just for Marcus but for everyone who's ever fought against power and won. Jimmy raises a hand, not for himself, but for them, for the truth that brought a giant to his knees. The stage feels lighter now, the air clear, as if a storm has passed. Jimmy's fight wasn't for ratings or fame. It was for what's right. And as the crowd's cheers fill the room, he knows they feel it too. A triumph not just over one man, but over the lies that let him rise.